I always thought my wedding day would be perfect. Instead, I watched my entire world collapse in the middle of St. Michael's Church. All because my stepsister couldn't wait 5 more minutes to destroy my life. My name is Harper, and I was supposed to marry Ethan Keller that sunny Saturday in June. The church was packed with 300 guests, white lilies lined every pew, and my custom Vera Wang dress fit like a dream. Everything was perfect until the moment the priest asked if anyone had any objections. "I'm pregnant with the groom's baby." The words echoed through the church like a gunshot. I turned to see Chloe, my stepsister, standing in the center aisle, tears streaming down her face. Her hands were protectively crossed over her stomach, and she wore the same blue dress she'd helped me pick out for the bridesmaids. I looked at Ethan. His face had gone ghost white, and he was staring at Chloe with an expression I'd never seen before, guilt mixed with something else. Something that told me this wasn't some cruel joke. "Harper, Ethan reached for my hand, but I pulled away. The whispers started. Hundreds of voices, all talking at once. I caught fragments. "Oh my God, did you know?" Poor Harper. My mother rushed past me to Chloe's side, wrapping her arms around her. Of course she did. She always chose Chloe. "Sweetheart, are you sure?" she asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Chloe nodded, her mascara running down her cheeks. 8 weeks. I have the test results to prove it. I stood there, my bouquet of white roses suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My father, my real father, not Frank, appeared at my side. "Come on, honey," he whispered. "Let's get you out of here." But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching the scene unfold like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Ethan kept trying to speak, but nothing coherent came out. Just stammered apologies and excuses that meant nothing. When I finally managed to ask, my voice sounded strange, hollow. Chloe looked at me, and for a split second, I saw something in her eyes that didn't match her tears. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. "The night of your engagement party," she said softly. "We were both drunk and—" I didn't hear the rest. I turned and walked down the aisle, past the shocked faces of our guests, past the lilies I'd spent months picking out, past the life I thought I was going to have. As I pushed open the heavy church doors, I heard my mother calling after me. But it wasn't my name she was calling. It was Chloe's. 3 days after my almost wedding, I found myself standing in my childhood home's kitchen, staring at my mother as she stirred sugar into her tea like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't chosen my stepsister over me at the worst moment of my life. "You need to understand, Harper," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Chloe's in a delicate situation. She needs our support right now." I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "And what about my situation, Mom? What about the fact that my fiancé and stepsister betrayed me in front of everyone we know? These things happen, sweetheart. People make mistakes." She took a sip of her tea. "Besides, Chloe's carrying a baby. Your niece or nephew." The casual way she said it made my stomach turn. Through the kitchen window, I could see Chloe in the backyard, talking on her phone, laughing like she hadn't just blown up my entire life. "Where's Frank?" I asked, changing the subject before I said something I couldn't take back. "At work. He's having a hard time with all this." She paused, then added, "He wants everyone to get along." "Of course he does." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Heaven forbid anyone hold his precious daughter accountable for anything. The back door opened and Chloe walked in. She froze when she saw me, her hand automatically going to her stomach, a gesture that seemed rehearsed, almost theatrical. "Harper," she said softly. "I didn't know you were coming over." Clearly. I turned to my mother. "I'm moving out. I came to pack my things." "Don't be ridiculous," my mother protested. "Where will you go?" Dad's offered me his guest room. I watched their reactions carefully. Mom's face tightened at the mention of my father, while Chloe's eyes narrowed slightly. "Alan," Mom scoffed. "He's hardly been around for the past decade, and now suddenly he's father of the year? At least he's on my side," I shot back. Chloe stepped forward, tears welling up in her eyes. "Harper, please. We're still family. We can work through this. Something in her voice caught my attention, a slight tremor that didn't quite match her perfect tears. I'd heard that tone before, usually right before she got exactly what she wanted. Family? I picked up my car keys from the counter. Family doesn't sleep with family's fiancé. As I headed for the stairs, I heard my mother comfort Chloe. Think of the baby, sweetie. You need to stay calm. I paused mid-step, a strange thought hitting me. For someone 8 weeks pregnant, Chloe had been drinking champagne at my engagement party. I remembered because she'd made a show of toasting to my happiness. That's when the first seed of doubt took root. My father's guest room became my sanctuary over the next week. While unpacking my boxes, I found an old photo album I'd forgotten about. Inside were pictures from the day Frank and Mom got married, when Chloe first became my stepsister. She was 16 then, all innocent smiles and perfectly rehearsed charm. I remember that day, Dad said from the doorway, making me jump. He was holding 2 mugs of coffee. Chloe had quite the meltdown at the reception. I accepted the coffee, frowning. What meltdown? I don't remember that. You wouldn't. Your mother and Frank worked hard to keep it quiet. He sat on the edge of the bed. Chloe threatened to run away because she wasn't getting enough attention. Even faked a panic attack during the first dance. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Why are you telling me this now? Because it wasn't the first time she pulled something like that, and it certainly wasn't the last. He pulled out his phone. Scrolling through some files. Remember your law school graduation? When Chloe had that emergency appendectomy? The memory hit differently now. Wait, was that fake? Dad nodded. I checked the hospital records. No surgery that day, not even an admission. My hands started shaking. How do you know all this? I'm still on the hospital's board of directors, Harper. And after what happened at the wedding, I did some digging. He paused, studying my face. There's more. A lot more. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Chloe had her first ultrasound today. Everything looks perfect. Wish you'd been there. I showed Dad the message. He read it, then asked, Did you know it's impossible to see much of anything on an ultrasound at 8 weeks besides a gestational sac? The pieces started falling into place. The champagne at the engagement party, the perfectly timed wedding interruption, the rehearsed tears. My lawyer's mind kicked into gear, analyzing patterns and collecting evidence. I need proof, I said, more to myself than to Dad. Real proof. I might know someone who can help. He pulled out a business card. Rita Monroe. She's discreet, thorough, and owes me a favor. I stared at the card, thinking about Chloe's smug face at the wedding, my mother's blind support, and Ethan's guilty confusion. Something wasn't adding up, and I needed to know why. One more thing, Dad added, his voice careful. Rita found something interesting about the timing of Frank and Carol's engagement 15 years ago. Apparently, Chloe had quite a lot to do with your mother leaving me. I felt the ground shift beneath me again, but this time, instead of despair, I felt something else, determination. Call her, I said, gripping the business card. I want to know everything. Rita Monroe's office wasn't what I expected. No frosted glass door with a detective's name stenciled on it, just a modern co-working space filled with startups and freelancers. She wore yoga pants and a blazer, looking more like a tech entrepreneur than a private investigator. Your father mentioned you're a lawyer, she said, sliding a manila folder across her desk. So I'll be direct. Chloe's done this before. I opened the folder and found myself staring at a series of social media posts from 3 years ago. Chloe, looking distraught, announcing a pregnancy. Sympathy comments flooded each post. 2 months later, a heartbreaking miscarriage announcement. Keep reading, Rita said. The next set of documents showed medical records. Or rather, the lack of them. No pregnancy tests, no doctor visits, nothing to support her claims. There's more, Rita continued. Remember Thomas Green? My stomach lurched. Thomas had been Chloe's boyfriend during college. He died in a car accident. After Chloe accused him of cheating, she posted about catching him with another woman the night before the crash. Rita pulled up an old news article, but traffic cameras show he was alone at a gas station when she claimed to have seen him. He was rushing to confront her about the lie when he lost control of his car. My hands started shaking. Does my mother know about any of this? Your mother believes what she wants to believe. But here's what's interesting. Rita pulled out her phone and played a recording. Chloe's voice filled the room, talking to someone at what sounded like a cafe. Of course I'm not really pregnant, Chloe laughed. But you should have seen Harper's face when I said it was Ethan's. God, she actually thought she could have the perfect life while I got nothing. Again. I felt sick. When was this recorded? Yesterday. My contact at the cafe got it during Chloe's lunch with her friend. Rita paused the recording. But there's something else you should hear. The recording continued, and Chloe's next words made my blood run cold. Mom helped me plan the whole thing. She never wanted Harper to marry Ethan anyway. Said he wasn't good enough for her precious first daughter. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled over. My mother helped plan this? Careful, Harper, Rita warned. You're sitting on a powder keg of family secrets. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? I thought about Thomas, about the lives Chloe had ruined with her lies, about my mother's betrayal. The lawyer in me wanted justice, but the daughter in me felt something breaking. I want to know everything, I said finally. Every lie, every manipulation. And then I want them both to face what they've done. Rita nodded slowly. Just remember, revenge is like a boomerang. Make sure you're ready for whatever comes back. The cafe security footage played on Rita's laptop, showing Chloe meeting with my mother 2 days before my wedding. They sat in a corner booth, heads close together, planning the destruction of my happiness like they were planning a birthday party. Watch this part carefully, Rita said, turning up the volume. On screen, my mother pulled out what looked like medical documents. Chloe nodded, practicing her tearful expression. They were rehearsing, I realized. Rehearsing how to break my heart. There's more, Rita continued, switching to another video. This time, it was Ethan and Chloe, but not at my engagement party. The timestamp showed it was from 3 months ago at a different bar. He really was involved? My voice cracked. Not exactly. Rita paused the footage. Watch their body language. He's uncomfortable, trying to leave. She keeps touching his arm, getting closer. Classic manipulation. The next clip showed Chloe slipping something into Ethan's drink while he was in the bathroom. My stomach lurched. We found these in her apartment. Rita handed me a prescription bottle. Strong sedatives. The toxicology report from that night shows he was heavily drugged. I felt the world tilt. She drugged him and took compromising photos while he was unconscious. Insurance, she called it in one of her texts to your mother. My phone buzzed, another text from Chloe, having terrible morning sickness. Mom says you should be here supporting your niece or nephew. Family first, right? I showed Rita the message. She pulled out another document. Her medical records from yesterday. Blood test shows no pregnancy hormones. She's not even trying to fake the medical side of this. Because she doesn't need to, I realized. Mom's backing up every lie, and Frank would never believe his precious daughter could do something like this. Rita's phone chimed. Speaking of your mother, my contact just sent this. She played a new recording, my mother's voice, sharp and clear. Of course Harper won't contest anything. She's too proud. Once the wedding's called off and everyone believes Chloe's story, Ethan's family will probably offer a settlement just to keep things quiet. Their reputation means everything to them. They plan to profit from this? The realization hit me like a physical blow. This whole thing was about money? Money, revenge, control. Take your pick. Rita closed her laptop. Question is, what are you going to do now? You've got enough evidence to destroy them both, but what? But revenge isn't always sweet, Harper. Sometimes it's poison for everyone involved. I stood up, my decision made. Then maybe it's time they tasted their own medicine. The look Rita gave me was part warning, part respect. Just remember, once you start this, there's no going back. Good, I said, gathering the evidence. Because I'm done going backward. The restaurant I chose for the confrontation was expensive enough to keep Chloe from making a scene. She arrived first, wearing a fitted dress that showed off her supposedly pregnant belly. My mother came next, then Ethan, looking confused when he saw me waiting. "What's this about, Harper?" my mother asked, her voice sharp with disapproval. I placed my phone on the table, pressed play, and watched their faces as Chloe's recorded voice filled our private dining room. "Of course I'm not really pregnant." The color drained from Chloe's face. My mother's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "There's more," I said, pulling out the security footage stills. "Like how you drugged Ethan at the bar, Chloe. Or how you and Mom planned this whole thing for a settlement from Ethan's family." Ethan grabbed the photos, his hands shaking. I don't remember any of this." "Because you were unconscious," I said quietly. "She set you up, and my mother helped her do it." "Harper, sweetie," my mother started, but I cut her off. "Don't. I have the prescription bottles, the blood test results, everything. It's all going to the police unless." "Unless what?" Chloe sneered, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Unless you both confess. To everything. Tonight. In front of Frank and the Kellers." That's when Chloe's mask finally cracked. She lunged across the table, knocking over glasses and sending my phone crashing to the floor. "You stupid bitch. You think you can threaten me?" "Chloe, stop." My mother tried to grab her, but Chloe was already around the table, her fingers clawing at my face. I hadn't expected violence. As we struggled, I heard my mother screaming, Ethan trying to pull Chloe away. Then a sharp pain exploded in my temple as my head hit the corner of a chair. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was Chloe's face, twisted with something that looked like triumph. I woke up in the hospital with a concussion and a bitter realization. I'd underestimated how far Chloe would go to protect her lies. The doctors were concerned about my head injury, but more worried about the police report Chloe had filed, claiming I'd attacked her and threatened her unborn baby. My father sat beside my bed, holding a newspaper. The headline made my stomach turn: "Jilted bride attacks pregnant sister in upscale restaurant." "They're saying I snapped from jealousy," I whispered. "That I tried to hurt her baby." Dad squeezed my hand. "We'll fight this, Harper." But we both knew the truth. Chloe had outplayed me. In trying to expose her lies, I'd given her exactly what she wanted: a way to destroy me completely. 3 days after the restaurant incident, Rita called with news that changed everything. "Check your email," she said. The restaurant's backup security system caught something interesting. I opened the video on my laptop, my head still throbbing from the concussion. The footage showed Chloe arriving at the restaurant 2 hours before our meeting. She wasn't alone. A man in scrubs was with her, handing her something that looked like a medical bag. "That's Thomas Green's brother," Rita explained. "He's been helping her fake medical records for years. He confessed everything this morning." My hands started shaking. Everything? The fake pregnancy tests, the drugging incident with Ethan, even Thomas's accident. He's willing to testify. I was still watching the footage when my phone buzzed. "Ethan. Harper, you need to get to the hospital. Now. Chloe's here, and just hurry." 20 minutes later, I walked into the emergency room to find chaos. Chloe was screaming at a doctor while my mother tried to calm her down. Frank stood nearby, looking shell-shocked. Ethan was the first to see me. "They did a routine ultrasound," he said quietly. "There's no baby. There never was." Chloe spun toward me, her face contorted with rage. You did this." "No, Chloe," I said, pulling out my phone. "You did this. All of it." And Thomas Green's brother just confirmed everything. The color drained from her face. Behind her, I saw my mother sway slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Chloe stammered, but Frank stepped forward. "Thomas's brother?" His voice was barely a whisper. "The night Thomas died was no accident," I finished. "She set him up, just like she tried to set me up. Just like she drugged Ethan." "You can't prove any of this," my mother cut in, but her voice trembled. I played the security footage. Then the confession. With each revelation, Chloe seemed to shrink, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "Why?" Frank asked, tears in his eyes. "Chloe, why would you do this?" Because she always gets everything. Chloe screamed, pointing at me. The perfect career, the perfect fiancé, the perfect life. While I get nothing but leftovers. No, I said quietly. You get exactly what you create, Chloe. And now everyone knows exactly who you are. As security guards approached, responding to the commotion, Chloe made one last desperate move. She lunged at me again, but this time, I was ready. I stepped aside, watching as she stumbled past me into the arms of waiting officers. I'm pressing charges, I announced, looking directly at my mother. For everything. The last thing I saw was Chloe's mask finally shattering completely, revealing the scared, angry girl who'd been hiding behind it all along. 6 months after the hospital confrontation, I sat in the courthouse hallway, waiting for Chloe's sentencing. My mother had taken a plea deal for her role in the scheme, and Frank had filed for divorce. The family we once were had shattered completely, but somehow I felt lighter. Ready? My father asked, touching my shoulder. Before I could answer, I saw Ethan approaching. He looked different, older, somehow. Harper, can we talk? There's nothing left to say, I started, but he held up his hand. I know. I read Chloe's psychiatric evaluation. About her childhood, before your parents married. The abuse, the abandonment. He paused. It doesn't excuse what she did, but maybe it explains some things. I thought about the scared little girl I'd glimpsed in Chloe's eyes that day in the hospital. Maybe. But we all have trauma, Ethan. We don't all choose to destroy people. The courtroom doors opened. As Chloe was let in, our eyes met briefly. For the first time, I saw something real in her expression, not manipulation or anger, but raw, unfiltered pain. The judge's sentence was fair, 3 years for the drugging, fraud, and assault charges. But it was her mandatory psychiatric treatment that felt like the real justice. Later that evening, I found a letter in my mailbox. My mother's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Harper, I failed you both. I thought I was protecting Chloe from becoming that broken little girl again, but in doing so, I broke something just as precious, your trust. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just finally telling you the truth. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I folded the letter, thinking about cycles of pain and protection. About how trying to prevent one person's suffering can blind us to the suffering we cause others. Rita called as I was leaving the courthouse. How are you feeling? Like I won, I said. But also like nobody really won at all. That's usually how justice works, she replied. By the way, Frank asked me to look into Thomas Green's accident again. The statute of limitations isn't up yet. I thought about Thomas's brother, about all the ripples of damage Chloe had caused. No, I said finally. Some truths need to stay buried. His family suffered enough. As I drove home, I passed the church where my almost wedding had happened. The pain was still there, but it had transformed into something else, understanding, maybe, or wisdom. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Dinner tonight? Yes, I replied, smiling slightly. But I'm choosing the restaurant this time. Sometimes the happy ending isn't getting everything you wanted. Sometimes it's finally understanding what you needed all along.
The lipstick stain glowed like a neon sign against Mason's crisp white collar, coral pink.